I'm very pleased. I just told Sasha Graham, who is my guest today, that I'm now working with a program which is so comfortable for Facebook, and now it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Um, but now everything's fine. And the tone is on. Oh, sorry, Sasha.
No worries.
Uh, okay, so I can see that people are already watching. Hi, everybody. We are back to our weekly live chat for the German Tarot Association, and it's my great pleasure to talk today to Sasha Graham, a wild tarot expert from Americas. I don't actually know whereabouts you live.
Well, so I live in New York and I live in Manhattan, and we also have a place in the Catskills. So I've been up in the Catskills since March.
Very clever move, I have
Yeah.
to say.
I miss New York, although I miss the city.
Yeah, I can understand this, but it sounded really bad in New York. So what probably was a wise move to go on a longer holiday.
Yes.
Well, I met Sasha in 2017 in London at the Tarot conference there. We were both key speakers, and Sasha did a great job with shadow work there. We're going to talk about shadow work in a moment. But before this, I have a few questions, Sasha. Um, you have been working with tarot professionally for about 15 years or so, which is great stuff. But what's more interesting for me is that you have been an author and a best selling author for 10 years now. Um,
Yes.
you're working mainly with Llewellyn and Lo Scarabeo.
Yes.
And perhaps you can tell us about how you became an author, because I'm sure this is of interest for many people who also would like to be authors.
I am so super happy to talk about this because I know that for a very, very long time, I love books and I always thought it'd be incredible to publish something. And it seemed before I was a published author, it seemed so insurmountable to me. It seemed just like such a pie in the sky thing. And now that I've been publishing for almost 10 years, I do want to share with anybody out there who's interested in writing a book. If you are passionate about it, do it. It's not as hard as it seems. And in fact, one of the greatest places you can begin if you're really interested in writing any sort of nonfiction magic book is if you go to the Llewellyn website for submissions, they have a big list of everything that they would need from you in terms of a book proposal. And if you follow that proposal, it's exactly the same kind of outline that you would have to write anyway if you were writing a book. So you can just follow their proposal outlines and you'll be sitting on almost a fully formed book by the time that you're done. As long as you are diligent and as long as you're able to, deliver whatever it is that you want to be writing about, publishers are constantly putting out books. They want to make money. They want you to be an author that's incredible. They want your ideas. They want fresh perspectives. So, if you put in your all and your passion and your knowledge and your imagination, there's no reason you can't be published. Yeah, it's not as hard or it's
If you
not as
speak English.
right. Well, or as long as you show up and do the work. I mean, because I suppose, right, you could write in German or another language and always have it transcribed. I mean, no publishing company is going to turn down a good book, you
Yeah.
know?
And what was your first book you wrote?
My first published was Tarot Diva.
Yeah, that's really something new, I guess, 10 years ago. So did you suggest to them to write this, or did they come to you with this? How did it happen?
I did. So this is something, if you're interested in publishing, this is one reason that actually attending tarot conferences in person, conferences like the UK Tarot Conference, the Reader Studio in New York City, not only is it just so much fun as for a tarot reader, but oftentimes the industry acquisition editors are in attendance. So you can literally walk right up to maybe someone who works for Lo Scarabeo or Llewellyn or Inner Bear Traditions and say, hi, I'm so and so, I've got this book. So they can really put a name to a face. If you have a manuscript in your hand to give them, they'll be thrilled. That's why they're there. They want to acquire new properties, you know? So what I did was I knew that Llewellyn would be there, and I was in an early reader studio. And I think the first thing that I talked to, it was a tarot cookbook. And I chatted the idea over with the editor, didn't think it was the greatest idea at the time. And I went home and I conceived of this idea of Tarot Diva, which is really a modern way of using the cards. So this is like 10 years ago that the book came out. And so this was about using tarot for like how you dress, for how you cook, for how you live, what kind of modern movie stars align with the different archetypes of tarot. And so I thought it would be really exciting to make this kind of fresh, new perspective on the cards. And they dug the idea, so they went ahead and they published it. So that sort of began my relationship with Llewellyn, and I've been publishing with them ever since.
Can you give me an example for your suggestions, for example, when you draw the Hierophant?
Oh, like how I would apply that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
one of the things that I've always loved about tarot, and especially as a student moving deeper into the cards, is kind of figuring out how you embody that archetype, right? Or how the archetype could potentially embody you. Because cards are a two-way thing, right? Like we inhabit the cards, but the cards almost inhabit us. And this is something I think that's interesting when you're reading. We're always going to the cards for advice. Like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? They want, as much as you want answers from the cards, I feel like the cards are demanding something of you. So I like to look at it in this kind of two-way thing. So if you looked at, say, like the Hermit card, I thought, well, let's look at this in the context of the kitchen. What would the Hermit's kitchen look like as opposed to the Empress's kitchen? And so, of course, a Hermit kitchen would be austere. It would be simple, a wooden table, maybe a block of cheese, maybe a simple wine, almost like a monastic kitchen, as opposed to the Empress, who would be probably like overflowing with kitchen ingredients and fresh vegetables and color and beauty and cookbooks and all of this stuff, as opposed to the Chariot card, which would be maybe just your drawer of takeout menus or your delivery app on the phone when you want dinner fast.
I really
So
like this.
yeah, it was just a fun way to hopefully look at the cards in a little bit of a different light.
And this you published 10 years ago. This is pretty early, I think, for this kind of approach. So well done. I think in Germany we are always a bit behind with the new trends, but I think this would be something Germans are interested now as well. Really interesting. But you also do not so much work about future trends. You also did a lot of research about traditional trends. So one book I really would like to know more about is the Complete Compendium to the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. Yes, I did it.
I know it's a mouthful. It's
So,
a mouthful.
so there.
So, yeah. So this is just what the title suggests. It's the complete history of the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. And this isn't, I didn't write this to be my take on the cards. It's not, in no way did I want to say this is what I think like the Empress card means. In every sense, I went back to the pictorial key of the tarot, with which, as anybody who's read Arthur Waite's book knows, it's kind of very dense, almost esoterically poetic. So it was wonderful. I had the opportunity to completely pull apart and like kind of analyze the text and get to the heart of what exactly was it that he was saying. Why did he write this book? And how did his ideas, as expressed in the Golden Dawn's idea of the tarot, because of course they wanted everyone to make their own tarot card, like what was he getting at? and Pamela Coleman Smith, who approached the cards from such a different perspective. And of course, she's the one who really flows through, of course, because it's her artwork that we're all responding to. Where was she coming from and what influenced her? And it was so exciting. Actually, it was the UK Tarot Conference. I sat in a pub right across the street from the British Museum, and that in that reading room is where she went. And there was an exhibition of an earlier tarot deck that completely influenced this one. And so yeah, it was just kind of a way tarot's ballooned. I think it's really important to kind of always kind of return to where things began, to the root of the tree. So this
Yeah.
is the root of Rider-Waite-Smith.
And how did you get the material for this? Did you go to the British Museum and ask for
I
certain permissions, or where did you find correspondences of Waite and Smith, or?
So it was such a fun research project. I actually worked with a department inside of the New York Public Library, which was this rare arts and letters collection. They have a tremendous amount of Pamela Coleman Smith resources. I also was able to go out to US Games. Stuart Kaplan gave me access to his Pamela Coleman Smith archives.
Wow.
Stuart Kaplan himself, because he's responsible for bringing the Rider-Waite-Smith deck to market, he plays a part of the book. Without him, there would be no famous Rider-Waite-Smith. So he was so generous and kind to me with his time, talking about where he came from and how this kind of Wall Street guy wound up in the tarot business, just by following his instincts. So it was more at the New York City Public Library that I was able to actually sit with a lot of documents, from Bram Stoker's stuff to Pamela Coleman Smith's stuff to a little bit of Arthur Waite stuff. But what's so compelling about this deck is that it springs from, the Golden Dawn with all of these influential artists, and so to read a William Butler Yeats manuscript about tarot in the Golden Dawn and to literally have it as it in its real form as it sat, in the Golden Dawn gathering place where he was like passing out the pamphlets, brought for I hope it's reflected in the text. It just brought it just made it so real. And so that I felt like with that, I could honestly get to the root of what they were trying to express and what was going on around that deck.
That sounds like a really like a book I really need to read, because it's really what I want to know as well. You mentioned Bram Stoker. He was in the GD as well?
Yes, he was in the Golden Dawn, and he and Pamela Coleman Smith were very close. What I find interesting about the two of them is that they're very similar in that so he became like a surrogate dad for Pamela Coleman Smith, and that's why he's the reason she joined the Lyceum Theater and toured around. And both Pamela Coleman Smith and Bram Stoker essentially died penniless and without a bit of fame. And I didn't realize that, although Dracula came out obviously in his lifetime, it wasn't a hit. It wasn't until Hollywood made the movie, I think in the, I don't know if it was the 30s or the 40s,
In the
that
30s.
yeah, that Dracula became a sensation. So it's interesting that both Pamela Coleman Smith, Bram Stoker, and Arthur Waite died without any notoriety, really, and that their work became so much famous after their deaths. And their impact, their cultural impact is incredible. And that they were operating in the postmodern time period of London and Paris, in the at the turn of the century, right alongside the birth of psychology, right alongside the birth of modern art. It's exciting. We tarot readers go underneath, right? You go deep to see where the energy is all connected. And you start to say, wow, all of this magical thoughts coming out at the same time as Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud and Matisse and Picasso. And you're like, right, of course, it's all connected.
It's really interesting. And we are right into the issue of fairy tales with Dracula. You can call it a fairy tale as well. And your new deck, which we want to talk about a bit. You said that it just came out in June, so it's really, really fresh, and I'm very excited to know more about it. The Dark Wood Tarot. It's really great. I really like the style of this deck. I just had a brief. I watched the trailer on YouTube. You can watch a little trailer about it, and I've seen a few cards on Pinterest. Um, they all strike me as very Disney-like. So I'm reminded of my childhood Disney films. And yeah, just tell me why fairy tales, why this style? And I also read that you want to do a lot of shadow work with these cards, and I would like to know your approach about shadow work. But
Okay.
first, yeah, start from the beginning. Lots of questions.
Start from the beginning. Start from the beginning. Well, so I think that it is the nature of tarot readers to look at things within ourselves first and foremost that we may not be aware of, right? What's the whole point of working in the darkness and trying to see through the veils if you can't discover something new about yourself? And I think it's very easy when we're reading cards for ourselves to just affirm, oh, I'm a spiritual person on a spiritual journey. Here we go. It's a new cycle. And while that may be true and that's good, that's not going to help you grow. You know, you have to go and poke into uncomfortable places. And that's when I started doing shadow work. I was like, whoa, like it's so life changing, but it's also not easy to do. Now, I think that at the same time, I was captivated by the idea. I love fairy tales. I love the drama. I love the beauty. I love vampires. I love darkness. And I knew on some level, if I was really going to create a deck that would ask people to look at the worst parts of themselves, right? Or to travel into scary parts of their own psyche so they could bring some light in, I thought it would be a good idea, like anything else, to kind of seduce them into that, right? I wanted to make it
A true devil
seductive.
approach.
Yes, yes. So I felt like, yeah, like a beautiful, a beautiful
A beautiful cover, and
witch.
underneath there is the darkness.
Yes, yes, exactly. And there's animals, right? And it's the forest and it's nature. It's everything where we sprang from. And fairy tales are like, you know, tarot, like they never get old, right? They're all and they serve, I mean, fairy tales and tarot reading, I think that's what I talked about when we met at the UK Tarot Conference, hold so many things in common. The symbols, the numbers, the supernatural creatures, the heightened reality, all of that comes into play when we're doing a tarot deck or when we're doing a tarot reading. So I thought, oh my God, this is such a no-brainer for a tarot theme. And then I just I wanted the full scope of the cards to be seen. Like I wanted to look at all of the lightness as much as the darkness. There's the Lovers card.
that's that's the lovers.
Hmm. And
And
then the Queen of Wands.
you have to, yeah, but you have to put it more into the just behind before your face, and then we can see it. Oh, that's a great Queen of Wands. I really like
Yeah.
that. Um,
So anyway, so this was just all meant to be a jumping off point for doing shadow work.
so is the deck based on fairy tales, or is it just imagined stories in there?
So the deck is actually a fairy tale in and of itself.
Oh,
And when yeah, and in the guidebook, let me show you the guidebook. So we have
that's a
this
fool.
big, yes. So the Fool, who's on the cover, she's the Shadow Witch. And there's a story inside the book. So it's not, so it's all the traditional, this is too, it's all of the traditional cards, but what happens is the Shadow Witch begins, and I don't want to give too much away, but she falls in love for the first time in her life, and then her heart is broken. So of course, like what happens, right? When our heart is broken, we look for a way out, and that's kind of her ticket into the dark wood. And as she travels into the dark wood and she has magical animal companions, every single card is a lesson that she learns. However, every single card is also an aspect of herself. And so my first tarot deck, which was Haunted House Tarot, it was kind of the same idea of
Is it with
a
that looks really horrible. Sorry, but not the paintings, but very uh, difficult situations there.
difficult situations, right? Because and the whole like the point in Haunted House Tarot is that you, the fool, the woman, goes into this terrifying haunted house. But by the end of the deck, by the world card, she owns the house, right? The tough stuff is where we grow. The challenges are what forge us into who we are. So the Shadow Witch, very young and very kind of optimistic and naive, like the fool, goes into the woods. And when she reemerges, she is a fully fleshed woman who understands herself in a way that she couldn't have understood herself if her heart hadn't been broken, if she hadn't faced her demons, if she hadn't looked and gazed into the darkest part of her soul. And I mean, to be honest with you, what's going on right now in the world is really, it's like a shadow opportunity times a million, because all of this horrible stuff is coming to the fore. But in all of that, we've been given this incredible amount of space. So what better time, to kind of heal and tend to the darkest parts of ourselves, so that when we all emerge from this, the world can be full of more light and more possibility. Like, that's the whole point. That's why we read cards, right? We want to evolve, we want to grow.
We want to all go to the light.
Yes.
Yeah, but I still haven't understand your concept completely. So, are you just telling a fairy tale with the major arcanas, or are all the cards included?
So the main fairy tale goes through the major arcana. So we
Mm-hmm.
see her transformation from the fool all the way to this like empowered, embodied world card.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the cards essentially are just the creatures and things that populate the wood. So the story is not threaded through the minor arcana or through the court cards. The story's really weaved through the majors, which has been, I think, very helpful to. I've seen a lot of people have been writing to me saying, oh, I never understood, right, how I could relate to the cards in that way. So I had to walk the fine line of also giving all of the information for the cards and not letting it be too much of a novel or a fairy tale. So the story is just woven essentially through the major arcana.
So this was my second question. You basically have a story you're telling according to the cards. So
Yes.
you wouldn't shuffle the cards, but you would lie each card in front of you, read your text, and have a shadow work experience, or
Well, so you can. I mean, you could do that, but that's not how it's intended. So in the guidebook, what happens is the essentially on each of the major cards, the first paragraph is the witch's narrative, the witch's story, and how she moves from one card to the next. And then the rest of the text is essentially the information that you would find about that card. Now,
okay,
the shadow work comes into play, and I have a big section of this in the book, that your opportunity to do the shadow work is when a card comes up reversed. And so I encourage everybody that, and you could do this with any tarot card, not just the dark wood, but to use a reversal as a shadow. Now, what does that mean? How would you use a reversal as the shadow? Well, you have to literally put yourself inside the world of the card, see that card to its full kind of upright, original meaning and experience, but then move, because every card is a universe, right? With light and dark. Move into the darkest part of that card. So that's it's really fun to shadow reverse dark cards, because sometimes the shadow of the Three of Swords is something quite bright and beautiful, or the shadow of the Nine of Swords is quite bright and beautiful. And every card is different. But it's that looking at the shadow part of the card and then how you embody that. Example. So if we think of the Empress,
Yes.
and she's creativity and nurturing and motherhood, and you kind of put yourself in her chair and you're seeing all of that. To move to her shadow would be someone who's destructive of creativity, someone who's completely not nurturing, somebody who's completely kind of awful and destructive. So then you have to take that shadow and say, okay, when was the last time I shut down somebody's creativity? When was the last time I did that either to their face? Maybe I was doing it behind their back because I was jealous and I was like, oh, well, look at what she's doing. Maybe I was in a bad mood and my daughter came to me with a beautiful piece of art and I'm like, oh, not right now. Or maybe my husband was like, oh, I have this great idea. And I'm like, just shut up, just go away. The whole point of shadow work, we're always justifying what we do. So the shadow work helps us kind of call ourselves out. So not only can we make amends and say, hey, I'm sorry, I was really kind of a jerk. I didn't mean it and I apologize. But then you're less likely to repeat that behavior in the future. And the other thing that I think that's important about this, like envy is such a great shadow element because it's something we all feel and it points us toward the things that we want. It helps us know if I'm jealous of someone, it's because I want maybe what they've got. So then the answer is not to repress it or pretend you don't feel it. You feel it, you let it go, and you say, okay, what did I just learn about myself? So it's also about allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling without shoving it away. But you can't do that if you're just doing a tarot card reading and saying everything's gonna be great.
So you encourage people with a dark wood tarot to do tarot readings as well. It's just for tarot readings as well. Can you show me the Empress, how she looks like?
Yes. Do I have her in my pullout? She is pregnant. I'm gonna have to look for her. She's actually she's pregnant in a red dress, and she's reclining on what I call a witch's hand. When I was a little girl, we used to play with this witch's hand out in the woods. It's a big rock with 5 trees that look like fingers coming up around.
Okay.
And we made up so many stories about the witch's hand. And
never heard of this. But I always lived in the city. Oh yeah, I can see this witch's hand. She looks brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like her.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then I've got...
I really like the style. This was not drawn by you, right? It was another artist.
No, it is an artist named Abigail Larson. She's an American artist who lives in Torino, Italy. And it took us, so I sold the idea for the deck to Llewellyn, and then it took us over a year to find the artist. So and that's another thing. If anybody who's interested in creating a deck to sell mass market, you can sell an idea for a tarot deck, and then you and your publisher will kind of go on the hunt for just the right artist. It was so worth her. She was what I had envisioned in my head, her style, and the second I saw her, I knew she was the one. This is the star card.
Oh, that's very... I really like the... it's called Fledermäuse. I'm just missing a word here. What are the animals called? I just can't remember.
The animals?
The what?
In the deck?
Yeah.
You're speaking animals. So my whole suit of cups.
No. Sorry, but just... around the star are flying which animals? The ones with
bats.
The bats, of course. Sometimes I'm missing out words. I really like the bats on the star because I can relate to this now very well with the shadow work as well. It's birds, but it's birds of the night. I really like this idea. And you just mentioned that in your different suits, there are different animals figuring.
Hmm. And also, and just so, and like my judgment card is a vampire. So the whole idea of bats not only being spiritual airborne creatures, but also being aligned with vampires, and that's really about immortality and transformation and darkness. And talk about a creature that like used to be vampires used to be terrifying, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. That was a scary creature. We've evolved to like the sexy vampires, right? So that's a great example of kind of shadow evolution, something that used to be terrifying in the dark. The Salem's Lot vampires become the sexy Twilight vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. But yeah, so I wanted to put a suit of animals.
Yeah.
So that's the Two of Cups. That's two horses.
Oh, that's really lovely as well.
Because horses, they breathe each other in when they first meet to identify
Oh,
each
you're
other.
right.
And
Yeah.
the idea of when, yeah, meet your heart's desire, you're kind of breathing each other in like that. So yeah, I knew animals had to play a heavy part in the deck.
But they're not only horses now in the cups, but
Mm-mm.
all the different animals. Yeah, of course. If you go into the woods, you have to meet animals.
That's right. So there's the Five of Cups,
Do
the
you
Emperor.
also? Oh, I really like this one. Great. Do you also tell in the book why you use which animal, or is it just?
No, I didn't have an opportunity to go into detail. It was interesting though. I did find as I was creating it, some people have called this a feminist deck, and I do appreciate that. And I found that a lot of the male arcanas, I did not. I wanted them to be. I wanted the masculinity to be expressed via animals. I also wrote this during the 2016 election in the United States, and I was surprised at how much girl on girl hate I was seeing. I thought a lot of very unfair things were being thrown at a female candidate that seemed to come from people who just didn't like her because she was a woman. So I wanted this deck to be filled with females, but I didn't want to detract the masculine energy, but I wanted women to take a look at how they treat other women. And that's why the Five of Swords is a woman throwing swords into another woman's back. I think that that's one of the biggest parts of just a collective female shadow, which is the way that we interact and treat other women. And when women get on board with each other, I mean, we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just watching The Handmaid's Tale, and this is so much about women on women. It really, I can't really watch it. I can watch one episode and then I just have to smash something or whatever. Yeah, but I've been thinking about this today as well, that women are always in the way of women so much. And this is definitely something which has to be focused in shadow work, especially if you are into feminism as well, because we're now in a phase in feminism where we start to bite each other instead of fighting for the mutual goal. Oh, just wait, I need to put some battery, otherwise I'm going to lose you in a moment. Yeah, so very interesting. Can you show me the Five of Swords? Do you have it?
Yeah.
I,
Let me. I'm sorry for anybody watching at home where I have everything like on the floor in front
that's
of me.
totally okay.
Uh, da, 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 da.
While you're watching, are there any questions out there? I haven't had any questions yet from you. Perhaps you're all in awe because of Sasha's brilliant thoughts and mind. But if there are any questions you want to ask, just write them down, please.
You are too kind.
I try hard to be a good woman.
Of course, the card that you're looking for, right, is always the last card
Of course.
that you get when you're in a class, and they're like, "Pull out the Fool," and it like is always the last.
Just
So
put.
this,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah,
And no, I was gonna say, and there's also I thought that issues of fertility are also very interesting. So there's two cards in the deck that have women kind of carrying away babies, and it could be construed as stealing another woman's child or stealing your own child back. That has very mythological and ancient fairy tale roots. With the supernatural creatures that are supposed to come and like snatch your child from you. So I thought that would be an interesting element to put into the deck as well.
a bit of Outlander.
Yes.
Um, so, which is your preferred fairy tale actually? Did you have a role model for this fairy tale you created?
You know, this is going to sound crazy because it's not a traditional fairy tale in the Grimm's brothers, Hans Christian Andersen,
Totally okay.
but really, but the kind of overarching story I had in the back of my mind, and I have a quote from it in the beginning of the book, is actually from The Empire Strikes Back, and it's from when
I'm sorry.
it's it's okay. It's from when Luke Skywalker is training with Yoda. Oh, Yoda. I never. Anyway, Luke Skywalker's training with Yoda, and he goes into a cave, a subterranean cave, and Luke says, "What's in there?" And Yoda says, "Only what you take with you." And he moves into the cave, and he sees his father, but then he sees his face in his father's face. And I think I was like 12 when that came out, and I was so perplexed. I didn't understand. I was like, I don't understand that cave. What was that? And as I grew to understand, tarot and shadow work, I just thought, that's brilliant. It's genius. And working with tarot, we always know everything's right in front of us. And we know that like our biggest obstacles, or now we know, or now I know the biggest obstacles I face are never externally. It's all the stuff that I've got on the inside. So it was really Star Wars, Luke Skywalker and Yoda, that kind of put in my head, like, move into this dark cave. In my case, I use the metaphor of a forest. Yeah, that's where it all
Yeah, plus
kind of
this
sprang
planet
from.
he is on is very foresty, isn't it? It's
Yes,
it's really really amazing. I wouldn't have thought about this. So you made a female Luke Skywalker, which
that's
is
right.
happening in the new episodes anyway, which I haven't seen. So uh, really interesting. Yeah, I'm totally fascinated, and I definitely have to get this deck as well. And I'm really quite sure, I told you before we started this live chat, that I'm quite sure that German people are going to be interested in this because it's a very nice style. They love fairy tales. Um,
Mm.
and you said you can get it on Amazon, like all your other books as well, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, it's definitely available on Amazon, Bookshelf, Barnes and Noble. Pretty much, I think it's available worldwide. It's not been the only translation I know of is it's going to be translated into Chinese and
Of
then
course.
available on Chinese websites. Um, why are you laughing?
Because the Americans and the Chinese get on very well with each other.
Well, because it's not like we're starting a Cold War. Like, yes,
It's good shadow
but
work.
leave it to the tarot readers to bring the two, continents and cultures together.
Yeah, I'm all for it. It's yeah, yeah. I think this would be a project for German, for the German book market as well, and I will see whether yeah, there's another person saying hi from Germany. I haven't mentioned this to you, but there have been a lot of people saying hi, and a lot of people have also been watching. But since they didn't ask questions, I didn't bring this in because I was enwrapped in chatting with you. Um, no, but here in Germany we can get the books via Amazon. I already checked it. the dark wood tarot is about €30 in Germany, so it's a really affordable, normal price, plus a thick book to come with it. You said also it has a very nice cover with a magnetic opener, right?
Yeah, let me show you. So yeah, it's got this.
That's a hermit, right?
Yes,
Uh,
the hermit. And then you pull that out.
oh, that's really lovely.
Yeah, the packaging is quite beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I like it a lot. That's something I feel I can relate to a lot. One of my favorite films when I was younger was The Company of Wolves. Don't know whether you've seen this, by Angela Carter, script, Neil Jordan film. It's in
Oh
it's a
yes.
British film, so you might not have seen it, but it's a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood as a tale of growing into a woman, and it's a very brilliant film. You should watch it if you haven't seen it, because it's
I will put that on my Netflix watch
yeah,
list.
it's about vampires and loads of interesting tales, which will match your deck very well, I think.
Oh, I love vampires. That's so funny. I was just looking at like the like a list of cool vampire movies to see if I had missed any.
Yeah, it's not
Which
definitely a vampire movie, but vampires and werewolves figure. So,
Mm.
why are you so much into vampires?
Because I I, I read Interview with a Vampire when I was like a teenager, and it seemed like the ultimate escapism. I felt very powerless as a child. I had a very kind of erratic childhood. I moved all around the country, but nothing was ever stable. And so I loved the idea of the power of the supernatural, especially by like sexy vampires. And then when I moved to New York to be an actress, I wound up doing all these vampire plays. And then I spent the 90s making all these horror movies. And really for me, the first way I like fell in love with the supernatural was through a vampire. But then I realized when we're making magic with the tarot cards or just reading tarot cards, that's supernatural power as well. It's that same power underneath, expressed in a different way. So I just kind of, and I was born on Halloween. I'm a Halloween baby, so I love witches and
Wow,
vampires.
wow, that's really thrilling. Um, yeah, I really like your work. I told you before, and now I'm even more into it, and I will come back to your work again as soon as I manage to find the time. But I really want to have the Darkwood Tarot. There are no more questions, and I think we have said quite a lot.
Yes.
Do you want to say anything? Do you want to give something out to the world, or do you want to get into your day? Because what's time now at your place?
For me, it's early. It's just quarter of 1 o'clock in the
Ah,
afternoon.
okay.
So, what time is it there? You're like 7, 8
17,
o'clock.
no, 19 o'clock, 19 now, 7 p.m. And
So it's dinner time.
yeah, so I need to get the children now sorted.
You need to get them sorted and get a nice bottle of wine open and on your dinner table.
After that, yes.
I don't have anything else to add. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, and I'm sure people watching it had great fun as well, and people who will watch the rewatch will have a lot of fun. And I put your homepage, your webpage, into the announcement, and I'm sure anybody who wants to find out more about you just needs to type in your name into Google and will find loads of stuff if they
Yeah,
write your surname correctly, which some people don't manage at one point.
it happens to the best of us.
Exactly. So, yeah, I say we uh, finish. I was just looking for a cooler word for finishing, but I couldn't think of.
What do they say in the movies? What do they say?
Exactly.
How do they end the movie? I don't know. I can't even remember either.
So, as I said, who wants to know more about Sasha, you have all the information. Please leave comments in the video so Sasha can answer them later or I can answer them, whatever. And have a great rest of the week, basically, because there are no more live chats this week. Have, now some here? No, never mind. I switch off now.